Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another video. This is going to be a golf swing analysis for BHC355, swing submitted to the golf subreddit. I was concerned about its transition movement, stiffness, inflexibility, footwork. And so let's go ahead and take a look. Got your swing pulled up here and I'm going to play it through. Let's do it a little slower this time. So a lot of good movements here. I think a couple things we can do to help get a little bit better movement in your transition. And what I mean by that is your setup actually looks quite good. I like how your posture is, how your knees, and you know, I kind of like to see a straight line here from armpits to knees to balls of feet, and you're pretty much spot on with that. So setup looks quite good. I like a lot of movements here in your backswing. You're doing a nice job of getting the hips to turn open and then the shoulders to follow. I have no problem with kind of the position you're in here at the top. Your wrist conditions are pretty solid, maybe just a tiny amount of cup or extension here in this lead wrist, but that's not a problem. Your face is pretty parallel to your lead arm. So a lot of good movements there. What I would highlight here is this transition period, right, where you go from backswing to downswing. And what I see, I put a little line here on your tush at setup, and I see that you have some really extension, meaning your hips are moving forward a fair amount into impact. You know, so if your spine angle, by that I'm talking about this, the literal position of your spine, you can definitely see here that you have changed that pretty dramatically. Let's get you more closer to impact. You've changed it pretty dramatically to kind of be more right here. I think that would definitely be something to look to fix. Now, early extension is more of a effect, not a primary cause, meaning the golf swing usually works like a set of dominoes, and the dominoes that you put into motion earlier affect your swing later on. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that could be going on. For starters, I think some of it is just related to how you're moving and transferring weight, especially in this first part right here. You can see your right hip is coming forward. Now, some of this might be related to camera angle. If you look at this image of Justin Thomas, you can see, you know, the camera is perfectly aligned with pretty much with his feet. I mean, it's pretty close. If anything, maybe slightly left, maybe like here. And yours appears to be a little bit, the camera shifted a little bit to the right, and it's a little closer. So I think that will make an effect. So but I do think that a little bit of shift in how you're using your spine would help a lot. Some of the things, early extension is something that I also suffer from. So some of the feels or some of the things that you can try would be as follows. For starters, when you get to this position, try to feel as if this part of your right hip is kind of frozen or locked into place. And you know you need to turn and rotate your hips. So the only other way to do that is to take this hip and pull it this way. So you're pulling it open and then backwards. Okay? And try to keep this hip and this knee. Now, you're not physically going to be able to do it, but the feeling is that you try and keep this as perfectly fixed as possible and just open up that hip. Now, as you get down, what you're going to feel is that if you're doing it correctly, you're going to feel that your butt is way back, because it kind of needs to be, and that your chest, if you're doing it correctly, is way down toward closer to the ground. Like you might even feel like you are crunching down to the ground. But again, current relative to your, if this is what your spine angle is, and I'm asking you to do is try to keep that throughout this part of the swing. Look at how much you are not staying on that line. So in order to stay on that line, it will feel quite drastically different, okay? One other thought that I would have is think about your pelvis, okay? I'm talking about your pelvis. I'm talking about the bone that connects your two. So I think this is the femur, two femurs, and you've got a spine. And then the pelvis is kind of that bone in between that connects everything. And to me, the pelvis is quite a crucial player in all of this. And what I want you to feel like is that the pelvis can tilt. Okay, so what I mean by that is just stand up in your living room, wherever you are, and try and experiment and practice your range of motion with your pelvic tilt. Okay, now a lot of times early extension is called goat humping, and that's because tilting your pelvis up and down is kind of the humping motion. So what I want you to try to feel is that if you're standing straight up and down, imagine that there is a laser beam coming out of your belt buckle. Okay, and then using just your hips, try and point that belt buckle. So if it's pointing out like this, try to get it to point down in this direction. And you'll notice that your lower back will arch, your knees will probably arch as well, and your butt will go backwards. Okay, that is called anterior pelvic rotation, or ATP, or APT. And then the opposite would be posterior pelvic rotation, which would mean that you are going to take your pelvis and you're going to try and rotate it this way. So it will go up. Okay, and this will kind of feel or look as if you're an old man, right? You're going to have a lot of curve here in the lower back. Your lower back will be very soft. There won't be any right in this area right here. And it's kind of like an old man shuffle posture. Again, that's posterior. And I want you to just feel the extremes of those two range of motions. And basically what I am encouraging you to do with your swing is, at setup, I want you to have more of that old man posterior pelvic rotation. So take your setup and just try and feel as if this is your belt line, just get it to angle up, just a very small amount more than it is. So your butt will tuck under, you're gonna have some roundness in your back, and you're gonna feel like an old man. Then I want you to make a backswing, and what I want you to feel is on the way down. So when you get to about this position and you start to transition, I want you to feel as if part of that movement is to rotate your pelvis anterior, so down. As if you're like a shortstop in baseball, ready to field a baseball, that defensive ready position. So then as you're coming here, what that will do is it will force you, so you can see what's happening is your pelvis is definitely moving in a posterior fashion, meaning if this is your your belt line right here, look at how now your belt line is right here. Okay, so you see how the angle was pointing down, now it's pointing up. I want you to try to flip that around. Okay, so when you get to this position, it will feel as if I want you to maintain that pelvis line. So you're going to need to feel like you're kind of arching and flexing the lower back, and you're really trying to drive that left buttocks backwards and try to maintain that all the way through this downswing position right here. And it'll feel kind of odd, but that's kind of the sensation, just to give you some awareness. Now in reality, let's look over here at Justin Thomas, okay, and let's talk about his pelvis. In reality, the movements are pretty subtle. You can see his pelvis line really hasn't changed much. It's gone down a little bit, but that's just because then as he starts his downswing, what I want you to watch is see how he does a nice job of maintaining his pelvis line. And I'm not just looking at the belt here, I'm also looking at the kind of the angling of the hips. I compare his position to yours over here just before impact. You can see there's a pretty big difference here in spine angle, and how his left hip has really stayed on that tush line really nicely and kind of replaced it. He's kind of rolled from the right hip to the left hip, and he still has, his pelvis is still pointing down, whereas yours is quite a bit more up. So let's draw even. Let's just draw that line. There's his line on the belt loop. See how it's still angled down. And then if I draw your line on the belt loop, it appears to be quite a bit more up. All right. Again, early extension is really kind of a complex movement, but I really think that the pelvis is a great way to understand it. There are a number of drills you can use. One would be at setup to place something with to give you some feedback on your left hip area. So you could take an alignment stick if you're able to, or even your golf bag, and stand it up so it's over here touching kind of your left cheek, kind of like this. And then the idea is when you get to the top and you come down, see how you've come off of that. You want to try to make that swing in such a way, again, you're trying to keep the pelvis pointing down, and you're trying to ride the left hip on that object. Alright, so please let me know your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see you guys again soon. Thank you very much. Bye.